Call to order the September meeting of the Oxford Planning Commission. Commissioners, you have the agenda before you. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
No changes or additions.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The minutes of the August meeting have been posted. Are there any changes or additions to the minutes? Pretty straightforward. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ben, do we have a staff report today?
Yes, sir.
All right. I noticed the building officials report was upgraded.
Different?
Yes. What's going on there?
Well, over the last, I would say, 45 days, we've worked to implement our EnerGov system, which is our permitting and review software. And as part of that, there's a new reporting function. So that's why you're seeing it be a little bit different than what you're typically accustomed to. We're still working on the formatting of it, and but we think it's a little bit more robust, and I think that you'll enjoy it as soon as we get it all figured out.
Great. Looks nice.
I've heard the training went well.
I think so. Yeah, we're still working, we're ironing out the wrinkles, but so far so good.
I've used it. It was fine. I mean, I've been on the other side of it, and it was, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
That's what we like to hear, Judy.
Yeah.
Case number 2886A was up for administrative approval.
Yeah, I'll just address that. We received no objections after this has been posted for 14 days, so per the code, we're approving that as a special use.
Okay. Thank
Yep.
you. We have one item on the consent agenda. That's case number 2889. Linda Bishop has filed a request for variance for fences and exterior yard walls for the property located at 110 Hickory Street. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. That brings us to the public hearings. First case up for the public hearing will be case number 2887. Rand Management has filed requests for a special exception as provided in section 3.8.10.2 service stations, districts allowed. B, a special exception is provided in 3.8.8.5 restaurants, additional standards, drive windows for property located at 5093 George Pat Patterson Parkway. We'll go ahead and hear the case for both special exceptions, and then we'll vote on them separately.
Great, okay, thanks. So as JR mentioned, we are reviewing a proposed service station for 5093 Pat Patterson Parkway. It's located at the corner of Highway 314 and that parkway. The applicant proposes to construct a service station with 5 pumps and a convenience store with a retail space, drive-through commercial space, and a second story. We'll go through, I had it laid out in your report under A and B, but we'll go through the special exception for the use first and then move on to the special exception for the drive-in window. The standards for service stations are found in section 3.8.10.5 of the Land Development Code. They were listed out for you in your report with staff comment. The plan provides adequate stacking space. Stacking will be within the lot where the service station is going to be located. The pumps are proposed to be located on the north side of the retail facility. And as you guys know, that pumps must be located in the side or rear of the facility. So this meets that requirement. The proposal complies with the standard build to lines in the TMB district, and all fuel pumps will be located a minimum of 20 feet from property lines. And the plan also complies with the requirements that elements of the pump island or canopy that are not operational should be architecturally integrated into the building through the use of color, material, and architectural detailing. The the columns of the pumps are proposed to be wrapped in brick and stone to match the material of the proposed building, which is also one of the standards for service stations. Staff makes the finding that the addition of a commercial business here will be a benefit to both the site and the surrounding neighborhood. The area in which the proposed business is located is currently fairly undeveloped and lacks commercial businesses to provide services to visitors to the area. The service station and C-store, as well as the proposed restaurant space, will be convenient to visitors to nearby M-Trade Park. Staff is recommending approval of the special exception for the use as provided in section 3810-2 with the following conditions. Approval is for the plan as submitted, including the elevation of materials, subject to necessary revisions per the site plan review committee. The applicant agrees that all display items for sale will occur within the main building or within other designated areas and will be screened from public streets. That's one of the standards for the use. And if building permits have not been issued within 18 months, the special exception shall expire. So moving on to item B, the proposed special exception for the drive-through window. The applicant proposes a drive-through window on the west elevation of the building, which will be used for a restaurant. Restaurants with drive-through windows are permissible by special exception in the TMB district, with the requirement that sufficient stacking exists to prevent backup onto access roads. After evaluating the proposal, staff believes that sufficient stacking has been provided. We're recommending a condition of approval to address the potential. There have been issues in some drive-throughs in the city that, you know, the site lacks sufficient stacking space and there'd be safety issues with traffic backing up. So we did try to address that with condition number 2 in our recommendation. If there is going to be a drive-through window in this location, it's probably in the best location that they could have put it on the site. It's in the northwest portion of the building. It's screened from both of the public streets, Pat Patterson Parkway and Highway 314. In recent years, M-Trade has become an asset that attracts lots of sports teams from the region. I'm sure y'all are out there with the kids all the time. And those areas that surround M-Trade Park were recently annexed into the city limits. And there's not a ton of retail and restaurant opportunity in that area. So staff recommends approval of the requested special exception with the conditions that approval is for the plan as submitted, including elevations and materials, subject to necessary revisions per the site plan committee. And if staff determines that the stacking queue for the drive-through is creating a safety concern due to it not being managed within the site, that the applicant will be responsible for taking necessary measures to direct the customers to the satisfaction of staff. And if building permits have not been issued within 18 months, the special exception will expire. So that was a lot of information, but I'm happy to answer questions if you guys have them.
And the applicant's engineers on virtual.
Yeah, and John Granberry's on the line if anyone has questions for him.
Thank you. I've got a question. So we've got a second floor with no windows. How do you do that? How do you get through code on that?
That's a good question. It's possible that maybe they'll have to add some type of windows as they go through the building code process. It could be that they're just using that second story for storage. So, John, do you have anything to add to that?
Now, I can talk to the architect about it, but that's the only elevation they've sent me so far. And like you said, if there are issues with the International Business Code or the City of Oxford's code, as it goes through the permitting process, the building permitting process, all that will be addressed at that time.
Yeah, I suppose we're only looking at the use and the special exception for the drive-through, so.
Okay.
In
Fair
principle.
enough. Fair enough, sorry.
But no, I mean, it's a good question, but in principle, they're agreeing to a functional second story, whatever that one would look like.
Whatever it would be, okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question about number 2 on the B part. If it is found to be a problem and the applicant is responsible for taking all necessary measures to direct their customers, how does that process work? Have we had something like that before that we've had to deal with? One Starbucks comes to mind.
Yeah. It would likely start with a complaint that would be to our office, and then we would try to work with the applicant to figure out a plan that is to our satisfaction, and they're agreeing to that condition by, you know, making this, if you guys make it a condition of approval, they have to make changes to fix it, so.
Well, and it's our understanding from conversations with the engineer and the applicant that this is not a typical QSR style of a, you know, drive-through restaurant. And so we don't anticipate there to be high volumes of traffic. It's my understanding from John Granberry that this is more for like call-in orders, and so you could drive by and you could pick up a sandwich. They're not even intending to have an ordering, you know, like kiosk or whatever that you pull up to and have the microphone like you typically do with a normal quick service restaurant. So this is more of protective in case that use comes or they have a different tenant that comes in, then we have this condition that requires them to at least, you know, take necessary measures if that issue were to be created. They've already, you know, the queuing space is in the interior portion of the site, and as Kate mentioned earlier, the window's on probably the most appropriate area because it's on the northwest corner. It's away from both 314 and Pat Patterson Parkway, so there's a lot of potential for queuing on the internal portion of the site.
I'm on page 10. It says pickup, are there pickup windows on both sides?
They had proposed that originally and they eliminated one. It's possible that we included the wrong drawing. Is it what's the sheet number?
A101. It's got pickup windows labeled at both ends.
Yeah, they're only proposing the one on the northwest corner.
Okay, so since one of the conditions is plans is submitted, let's make sure we have the right drawings in the file.
Yeah, I do see that now, that first floor plan. So it looks like we revised the site plan, but did not include revised floor plans.
Okay.
So we'll note that for the record.
Yep. And then, Ben, you used some phrase like taking the necessary steps if there was a stacking issue. I wonder, since we have had issues, I think it's what this condition is intended to get at, but are we effectively making the special exception for the drive-through dependent on adequate stacking so that the window could be shut down if it's not judged adequate?
Yeah, based on our conversations, we believe that they have adequate stacking. I think
Right.
that they have stacking for 3, but yes, I believe that the condition is basically saying you have to have adequate stacking for this particular use.
As an ongoing thing?
Correct.
Right, okay.
And JR, that is such a good point, and it happened, I was here the last time this came up was the,
Dunkin' Donuts?
Dunkin' Donuts. And
Yeah.
that condition said that way probably ought to happen.
Yeah,
That if queuing cannot be done, then the drive-through could be shut down, or would be shut down.
yeah, so I'm good with that. I mean, just having the drive-through, you know, assuming that the commission approves it, that it be conditional on not just staff judging at the current point that it's adequate stacking, but that on an ongoing basis that it's considered safe and adequate. How do we word that? Anybody want to help me? Hearing none, I'll take a stab at it. I think we can just,
Saying that way is about clear enough.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, all right.
And does that automatically mean that it runs with the land, like a different tenant, it still means that?
Yeah, the special exception would have that
It
condition.
doesn't matter who's
Yeah.
doing it?
As long as the use is on the property, regardless of owner, the same condition
Right.
applies. Yeah. All right, any other comments or questions? Anyone from the audience wish to speak? Or online?
Yes, I had a comment.
Okay, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say in regards to the stacking, if it does become an issue, we could restripe. We've got wide enough area in the parking lot area and the drive aisles. We could restripe it and account for additional stacking spaces if needed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't anticipate withdrawing the special exception to be an issue, given the situation here. It was more of a general question. Thanks, John. All right, we'll vote on the special exceptions individually. Is there a motion on the special exception for the use?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to
with the
approve.
Staff recommendations.
I have a motion to approve the service station use in this district, subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Hey, hang on. I just want to make sure that includes the updated or correct set of plans. Because you talked about having the two windows, and I still think that needs to go into both of them. That if the staff recommendation is that we accept it as the plans are, then we need to say it's accepted with an amended plan with only one drive-through window.
So we have it as subject to necessary revisions per site plan review committee, and the building department is a part of site plan review committee. So presumably that would.
The only issue with the plans that I can see is on the architectural floor plan for the first floor. All the other elevations and plans indicate that there's just one pickup window, even the site plan. So we just need an updated architectural floor plan, which we will get as part of site plan review.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that the subject to staff conditions, and that is that sufficient stacking space is required for this use.
Okay, well, so the stacking was on the second exception.
No,
for
that's
the
on B,
drive-through.
I'm sorry, on B, I'm sorry,
All right.
sorry.
Okay, so do we need an amendment to the first condition or not? Or are we good?
I think we're okay. The site plan review committee
Fair enough.
will
That's fine.
approve only the one window on the northwest side.
All right. All right, so we have a motion to approve the use subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, so the use has been approved. We'll move on to the special exception for the drive-through. There is an amendment to the second condition to say that the adequate stacking has to be ongoing and that the special exception itself is conditional on safe and adequate stacking. Is there a motion to approve the special exception for the drive-through?
I would make a motion to approve the second special exception with the drive-through, with that amendment that the planning department will monitor the queuing on an ongoing basis and has the authority to shut down the window if they determine at their sole discretion that it is unsafe.
As well as the other two conditions?
As well as the other two conditions, yes.
All right, we have a motion subject to those conditions. There's a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, it is approved. We'll move on to case number 2888. Joey Moore has filed requests for A special exception is provided in section 3.8.10.2 service stations districts allowed. B, a special exception is provided in 3.8.8.5 restaurants, additional standards drive-through windows. And C, a special exception is provided in section 3.11.9.2 use of unenclosed rooftops districts permitted for property located at 2600 Old Taylor Road.
Okay, so very, very similar use to the previous case. The subject property is about 2.5 acres, located at the southwest corner of Old Taylor and Landis Road. Applicant is seeking to construct a service station with 2 bays for future commercial and a functional second story. Site plan is currently under review. In this case, applicant is requesting several special exceptions to facilitate this site plan. The first of which is that service stations are special exceptions in the TNB districts, and the additional standards for that are as follows. A and B really go with accessory service stations. C is pump areas and corner lots in the TNB must be located to the side or rear of the retail facility, not in the front yard, unless the lot backs into residential use area. So while this site is a corner lot, the pumps are being placed in a front so as to shield residences along Landis Road from commercial traffic. Primary buildings in the TMD must meet standard front build-to lines. So the primary building meets the build-to line on the north side, and the pump canopy meets the build-to on the east side. All fuel pumps must be located a minimum of 20 feet, and they do meet that. There are no wrecked cars and repair services proposed with this. Pump islands must be situated with proper stacking, and they are in this case. H and I are both about elements of the pump island being architecturally integrated, and they satisfy those requirements. For J, all display items for sale should occur within the main building within designated areas that are screened from the public streets, and I'll ask for that as a requirement, as a condition of approval. K, the canopy columns shall be wrapped with architectural facing, and they are wrapped with brick to match the primary building facade. Lighting standards are met and screening requirements are met. Of note, the architectural elevations indicate that architectural metal siding is to be used for the portions of the building associated with the second story. The use of metal as a primary facade material is a special exception. Either the special exception shall be sought or the material can be changed to an appropriate material per section 5.6.1.8. And staff recommends approval. The requested special exception is provided in 3.8.10.2 after making the finding that the proposed service station will not adversely affect the public interest and that the housing development on Landis Road allows the pumps to be located in a front yard. With the following conditions, that approval is for the plan as submitted, subject to the necessary revisions per the Site Plan Review Committee. That approval is contingent on staff receiving updated exterior elevations to reflect updates to the northern architectural elevation that reflect that face as a front, including additional windows on both the first and second stories. That approval is contingent on receiving special exceptions for the use of an unenclosed rooftop and for the use of metal paneling or provision to staff of updated architectural elevations that indicate an acceptable material. That should there be any items for outdoor sales, that they shall occur within designated areas that are screened from the public, and if building permits have not been issued within 18 months, the special exception shall expire. The second request is for the drive-through window. They propose that drive-through facility on the south face of the building. Drive windows are special exceptions in the TMB district. The standard for drive windows is to ensure that sufficient stacking exists so as to prevent backups onto access roads. Staff is of the opinion that sufficient stacking is provided for in this drive-through window. And this drive-through window will serve the convenience store portion of the building and will be used to serve call-in orders. Window is located on the side of the building and does not face a city street. Staff recommends approval of the requested special exception as provided in 3.8.8.5 after making the finding that the proposed service station will not adversely affect the public interest with the conditions that, well, we'll probably modify this condition again, but should staff determine that the stacking queue for the drive-through is creating a safety concern due to it not being managed within the site and extending into the public right-of-way, the applicant shall be responsible for taking all necessary measures to direct their customers into the development to the satisfaction of staff, and if building permits have not been issued within 18 months, the special exception shall expire. And the third one is for the use of an unenclosed rooftop. As a portion of the proposed second story is an unenclosed rooftop to be used in conjunction with the enclosed second story space. Unenclosed rooftops are special exceptions in all districts, and additional standards include barriers. That physical barriers shall be located 6 feet inside of perimeters of any unenclosed rooftop in such a manner that individuals cannot stand within 6 feet from the edge of the rooftop, and those barriers shall not be visible from the ground. Those are indicated on the floor plans for the second floor. B, C, and D really deal with standards relating to restaurants, and a restaurant is not currently proposed at this time, but the applicant has acknowledged these requirements should one be proposed in the future. E is about building age, and this is for new construction, so that's not really applicable. And F is about existing rooftops, which is not applicable. G is about additional building permit prerequisites, and the applicant has acknowledged those requirements, mostly about engineering documents. Staff recommends approval of the requested special exceptions provided in 3.1192 after making the finding that the proposed service station will not adversely affect the public interest, with conditions that approval is for the plan as submitted, subject to necessary revisions per the site plan review committee, and if building permits have not been issued within 18 months, a special exception shall expire.
Thank you, sir.
Applicant's engineers here if you have any questions.
All right. Commissioners, any questions?
I have one question. On the barrier part where it says 6 feet
Yes.
from the side, no picture I've seen shows where someone is, you can easily get right to the edge. So I'm sure, that something will be done. But if you look at the aerial views, and the final picture, I'm looking down at it, there shows no distance from the edge,
Yes.
especially not 6 feet.
So the
very last page.
very last page, which will be the architectural elevation, has a railing indicated on the patron area side.
That's the only one that has it on there. I had the same question earlier. This is just a purely technical question, and Joey's probably gonna hate this question, but so the functional second story we defined as 51%, and in this case, part of it is the exterior patio. I'm just curious if the 6-foot buffer counts in the 51% or not.
It's something I'm gonna have to fix. That rule was new to me. It was a comment that came, I thought, kind of late, but, I thought about that this morning when I was on the architect, whether that's gonna catch us or not, because it must be a new rule, because all the other ones in town don't seem to have it, like the Graduate, or, trying to think of the other places that got rooftop. Like, I think, Lost Pizza Company, I don't know if they've got a 6-foot barrier from the edge or not, so that was new to me. We'll check and see.
And I think the Graduate was the first one, and there were some conversations about it being a balcony, and I think we've revised the code to say rooftop and balconies require it, so, the Courtyard Marriott, they have it, the one that we approved over here at, right next to, Uno Mas, the one, the Julep, the new design, well, they haven't seen that one yet, right?
Spoilers.
It was a public meeting.
The Courthouse Square Preservation Commission saw that last week, so.
I was just curious.
And a lot of times, what we hear as part of that, this request is that they're gonna comply with it, and as we further progress into the site plan package, and more importantly, the building plans, we're making sure that there is adequate, safety space to make sure that they're complying with that 6-foot requirement.
Okay. Other questions?
I see that should a restaurant be proposed, that the acknowledgement, or has been acknowledged, the requirements has been acknowledged. So do they have to come back before the planning commission if they want to do a restaurant or any of these other various problems they're accepting?
I wouldn't believe so in that case.
So in that scenario, that's what I'm, so kind of like the last one, do we need to go ahead and say that the planning commission has the right to revoke the special exception should they
Not
go forward with?
Those particular, sure. With B, C, and D, yeah.
And maybe this is just more of the lawyer in me, but when you say acknowledge, do they agree to it, or do they just say, "Oh, okay"?
I mean, there's not a whole lot.
I see what you're saying.
That's my question.
That means those have very
So-
different meanings to me.
So, to be fair, one of these is non-breakable material, saying that,
Right.
that they have to use plastic cups up there. There's not a whole lot they can put into a site plan that
Yeah.
says they're gonna use plastic cups when they're serving drinks.
So is the special exception revocable? Maybe a question for the city attorney, but.
Well, I don't know if the special exception is revocable, but you must comply with the terms of the special exception for it to continue to apply. And I guess if you, it's not that it would be revocable, you'd be in violation of the terms of it, which I guess puts you in municipal court. I think it's, it would be a code enforcement issue, is what it's saying.
Yeah, for, yeah.
And
That's something from the police department though too, you know, and so that's why we incorporated it into the use as well. So after service area, they find that alcohol ordinance requires plastic. So it's a municipal code violation, and we acknowledge it as a requirement for this particular use just in general.
And Kirk, to your question, I think that's why they use the word acknowledgement, is because ultimately it's a code enforcement issue.
Okay.
But you don't want some new restaurant opening up and saying, no, I never would have spent
That's right.
$80 for this thing.
Yeah.
And so acknowledgement may be sufficient.
Okay.
It's a good question.
We're getting very technical tonight.
Sorry.
Any other questions? All right. Anyone from the audience wish to speak or online?
As a point of order for the B portion, would you like that first condition to read the same as the amended first condition from the last case?
I would.
Okay.
Thanks. Everybody clear on that? Just the drive-through condition will be the same as for the previous case. All right. All right, hearing no further comment, I'll entertain a motion. We'll do these individually as well. First, the special exception for the service station use.
Motion to approve with staff conditions.
There is a motion to approve the special exception for the service station use subject to the staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? All right. The second special exception is for the drive-through window, subject, well, the amended staff condition for the stacking. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions and subject to, what is it?
The amended condition.
Amended condition, yes.
All right, there is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All in favor? All right. And finally, the special exception for the unenclosed rooftop. I think we clarified everything there. Is there a motion for that special exception?
Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions.
There is a motion to approve, subject to the staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? All right, it's approved. Thank you. Our next case is public hearing for case number 2890. The Ole Miss Wesley Foundation has filed requests for a special exception as provided in section 3.6.9.5.c, religious assembly uses, additional standards, residential, and B, a variance from section 2.6.3, estate residential front yard build-to line minimum for property located at 425 Jackson Avenue West.
The Ole Miss Wesley Foundation has filed these requests for their property that's located on West Jackson Avenue. It measures about 1.75 acres. Currently, the property has an existing building that's about 2,800 square feet, but there's also another building that's residential at the rear portion of the site that's about 600 square feet. And they're proposing to demolish both of the existing buildings in order to construct a new facility that will include an office space for their staff, worship facility, kitchen, activity space and lobby, lounge and coffee areas as well. Additionally, the proposal includes living areas or living quarters that are attached to the primary facility, and this is a one-bedroom residence that they believe will be used for, or they indicate that it will be used for, say, missionaries that come and or visitors to speak to their membership, and they'd be able to stay there for a short period of time. A second building is proposed that it's on the northern portion of the site, and the foundation is seeking the ability to have communal living at this facility. And the plans indicate a single building with 2 units. Each unit contains 2 bedrooms that will have 2 beds in them, so a total of 4 people per unit, 8 people in the entire structure. Each unit's equipped with common living space, a kitchenette with a sink, microwave, fridge, and a laundry area. This use for residential living is, or communal living is an accessory use for religious assembly. It's allowed by special exception. The applicant notes that the neighboring property, Rebels for Christ, has residential space for students, and they've had that for quite some time. The foundation anticipates that they're going to be respectful of their adjacent property owners and their neighbors, and there's an expectation for Christian living and conduct that's not conduct that is stereotypical of student housing. Noise, alcohol, drugs would be strictly prohibited on this particular premises. Communal living for religious institutions and ministries is common in college communities. Newman Centers, Wesley Centers, even adjacent to this property with the Church of Christ. Additionally, as I mentioned, the foundation is proposing strict adherence to prohibit excessive noise, alcohol, and drugs, which can lead to issues with the neighbors. Staff recommends approval of the requested special exception after making the finding that the requested use is an appropriate location due to its proximity to the university, that the communal living for religious institutions is commonly found in college towns, even in the abutting adjacent property, and that the safeguard measures that the Wesley Foundation has for its residents to restrict noise, alcohol, and drugs will not be detrimental to the adjacent residential uses. And we recommend approval with 3 conditions stated in that report. They are also requesting a almost a 16-foot variance from the front yard build-to line. This property is zoned traditional estate residential, which has a minimum 40-foot build-to line setback, and you can go back as far as you believe is necessary and able to comply with the rest of the bulk requirements. In this instance, the site presents some topography challenges, so it kind of raises up, and then there's a big swale towards the mid to back portion of the property, and so the applicant is requesting a variance to be able to build really the porch of the building about 15 feet closer to the property line than what is allowed by code. They do indicate that. Or at least they note that the front facade of the building does comply with the 40 feet. They're trying to get closer, but also that Jackson Avenue does have a wider right-of-way here, and so you know, a lot of times that build-to line or setback line is trying to achieve some sort of distance from there. You're still able to at least be a good portion of actually more than 48 feet from the, more than 40 feet. It's going to be about 48 feet from the curb, so it will still have the appearance that it's set back about 40 feet or more. Staff believes that in this instance, due to the topography issues of the site, the wide right-of-way at Jackson Avenue, that the building will, with the covered porch, will provide for the desired build-to line distance from the street, and staff recommends approval with the conditions stated in this report. There's a whole team of folks here that can answer any questions that you have of them. I can answer any questions that you might have as well.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
The property lines that are shown, is that, what's immediately south of the property line? Is that the right-of-way for Jackson Avenue, or?
It is.
Okay, because it's pretty deep there. I mean,
right. And that's, I think, where I'm saying you'd still have the desired effect from the curb.
Mm-hmm.
You're at least 40 feet from the curb. I think it's 48 feet to that nearest point of the covered porch.
Okay, thanks. Any questions from the commission? All right. Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none. Again, we'll vote on these individually. First is the special exception for the residential use. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve with the three listed conditions.
I have a motion to approve the residential use with the listed conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. And moving on to the variance for the front yard build-to line, is there a motion?
Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions.
I have a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All in favor? Any opposed? It is granted. Our final case is case number 2891. The City of Oxford has filed a request for modifications to the Land Development Code. Ben?
Yeah, we're proposing a few modifications to the code. We've received, over the past several months, we've received complaints of some businesses that have used rope lighting kind of as a way of signage, and they've completely enclosed their, their storefronts and their structures with rope lighting. It's like LED style lighting that's, very bright, and it's distracting from the road, especially in close proximity to the curb and the roadway. And so we're proposing modifications that address that. In particular, we're adding a definition of what rope lighting is to the definition section. And it says that rope lighting, also known as fiber optic cable lighting, is made up of tiny lights available in either incandescent or LED bulbs, spaced about 1 inch apart and surrounded by clear, flexible PVC tubing. So that's the definition of it. And that rope lighting, under the signage provisions, rope lighting shall include any rope lighting for commercial structures along the exterior of a structure, exterior and interior of a storefront, along the perimeter of any window or within 3 feet of the interior of any window or said structure. And such rope lighting should not be afforded any non-conforming status under this code, and all rope lighting, regardless of the time of its installation, shall be deemed a violation of this code and shall be removed. And we're putting in a statement that that would have to be removed within 30 days of this ordinance being effective. So that is changes to the rope lighting and adding the definition. And then we have one other change, which would be some design standards for monument signs. And so permanent signs and sign support materials should be constructed of metal, painted, and stained wood, masonry, glass, concrete, and or other materials if approved by the Director of Planning. Oh, I'm sorry. So we've had some issues with, I'm sure y'all can appreciate, material and supply chain issues, and in particular we've seen this around signs, and so we've had a couple of businesses that have come and sought a sign permit for a permanent sign, but effectively it's a temporary sign while they're waiting for their sign cabinet or whatever to be fabricated and to be able to get here in time. But they're proposing to use like a corrugated plastic, so something that you would typically see with like maybe a yard sign, and they've proposed to mount those on the buildings. We've approved a couple of those, and our concern is that those ultimately lead to just a long-term signage, and they're they don't sustain themselves in the elements. That particular material just it gets beat up pretty good. The vinyl ends up peeling off. So we would like to not allow that as a material. That if they wanted to use something different, they could use like a board, like a wood board, a treated wood board, or even a piece of like a plexiglass type. And that could be mounted. So we're proposing to eliminate that as a material option. And then for monument signs, we are putting in some design standards that would require a decorative base, a sign face, and a cap. And all structural supports shall be screened and enclosed, either by brick, masonry, decorative masonry, natural and decorative stone masonry with stucco finish, or painted metal to make them not visible. So we met with the Ordinance Review Committee, it's been a few weeks ago, and we discussed these modifications, and this is what is before you after those conversations.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments or questions?
What about wood? What if they wanted wood around it
Like for the monument sign?
for the casing? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. So wood for the enclosure of the support structure? Or like a wood, I mean, because we,
Well, I mean, you're saying like the masonry has to go all the way up and over it, like we used the word capstone when we were talking about it.
right,
Whatever, you can't do something nice looking with wood.
you could do you can do post signs, and that's even a double post signs. We do allow for that, which is made out of wood, but what we're seeing are people that cut down like pole signs.
Yeah, I'm talking about the enclosure, you're saying that the enclosure around the sign has to be masonry or metal. It couldn't be a nice looking wood.
It's really the enclosure around the support structure that holds the sign up.
Okay.
Just the
It
base.
doesn't
Just the
have to
base.
go around the sign itself.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
never mind.
Now, you could
never
put a
mind.
cap on top that, is made of wood or
Okay.
metal or something
Or
like
it could
that.
be
But we're
framed.
talking about, you have the pole that comes up like this and the sign sits on
Yeah.
top of it. We're trying to,
Right, okay, sorry.
yeah.
Other questions?
And just a reminder that since this is an ordinance change, this is a recommendation to the Mayor and Board of Aldermen, and they'll have 3 readings there.
Thank you. Any comments from the audience? All right, hearing no further comment, I'll entertain a motion on a recommendation for the changes to the Land Development Code.
I'll move to approve the recommendations to the board as provided by the planning department.
I have a motion to approve the suggested changes to recommend to the Board of Aldermen. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. It's approved. I'll now entertain a motion.
Can I make one just quick comment? I said this earlier, but I didn't think to, and I just want to make you aware, I mentioned earlier about our InterGov system that we have, that we are now using, and you may have noticed at the top portion or the header of your report, numbers that are up there, that actually coincides with the request from our InterGov system, so we're able to track and you cross-reference in both ways. So, our record in InterGov will include the reports, but then we also, in the reports, include the record. So
Yeah, I noticed it. I was going to ask.
I just wanted to make sure that you're aware.
All right, thank you. Anything else to come before the commission? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? We're adjourned.